Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. The guy from our first story kinda deserved to lose his job given that he intentionally wasted OP's time for no goddamn reason. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Your problem will be resolved in 3 days. I work as an engineer, and my job is split between two responsibilities: pre-plan future work, resolve various deficiencies during work execution that mechanics bring to me. The problem may be due to unsatisfactory material, incompetence, or bad engineering. 90% of the time, the solutions to the deficiencies are simple clarifications. The component is positioned in this manner, or did you read the notes engineering has provided you? My two coworkers and I are part of a satellite office right by the work site. We have a great working relationship with the usual mechanics. We normally go out of our way to help them succeed since they actually turn the wrenches to get the job done. But then there's Kennedy. He's an underachiever who will try to find every little mistake on our paper in an attempt to kill the job and get paid to sit around while engineering fixes the errors found. Once he said that our wording was confusing, we said install the component. He wanted reinstall the component. I digress. One beautiful rainy day, Kennedy comes into our office and says he needs me to go look at the job site. Supposedly there's something wrong and they can't fix the issue. I dutifully don my PPE and rain suit and go to the job site. After spending 20 minutes getting soaked looking for an issue, Kennedy tells me that he was joking and just wanted to get the engineers off their butt in their dry office and enjoy the weather. 2 weeks later, Kennedy looks visibly shaken up. Apparently his job-killing ways have made it up to management, and they issued him a final warning to get the work done and stop wasting money through inaction. They assigned him to a simple task which would take the better part of a shift. The task is simple and completed frequently. Historically, no deficiencies are reported when accomplishing this particular task. But the karma train pulled into the station something fierce. The tool required to accomplish the task is missing, and he needs to report to engineering that he needs a replacement. He comes into the office asking for a miracle, and I tell him that per our operations manual, we can take up to 3 days to resolve his issue. Since it was a Thursday, he would have to wait till close of business Tuesday for an official resolution. Little did he know that a replacement tool was in our office, and had he asked nicely, we would have straight away given it to him. And our second story. Want to see proof for yourself? Okay. This is about my grandfather from way back in the early 90s. He got a kick out of this story for years after it happened. Two things about Gramps. One, he was very much a DIY kind of person. He would not pay for things if he could do it himself, and by God, he was determined to do it himself. Two, he bought his house to retire in, and though he lived in a desert where even the winters are often warm enough to walk around in short sleeves, he wanted a hot tub. Combine these, and he built himself a deck on the side of the house with lattice walls for privacy, where he could have himself a nice, private hot tub. This was his pride and joy. We live a good 20-minute drive from the city, so we could sit on the deck to see the lights or lounge in the hot tub and enjoy the fragrance of the wisteria vines he grew into the lattice. Honestly, it was rather lovely. Fast forward a couple of years. Family had a dog who liked to chew things. He ended up chewing through the base of every single wisteria, killed a lot of them, but they were so wound into the lattice that it would have been a pain to get it all out. Gramps had wanted a garden in the back corner of the yard. He built a grape arbor, plant beds, all that jazz, but he didn't have a green thumb. He tried, don't get me wrong, but his usual determination didn't win against the desert. He eventually gave that up. And the hot tub. Oh man, that poor thing. One day Gramps went out to sit in it. When he got out, he forgot to turn off the heater. Every single drop of water evaporated, and the whole thing was just absolutely ruined. There's no way it could have been repaired, so Gramps, in his usual DIY fashion, and probably a bit of spite, took a chainsaw to the thing. He cut it into bits. Then, because his poor beloved hot tub has gone to the sauna in the sky, he finally took down the lattice with the long dead wisteria vine still entangled. Then he tore down and ripped up his failed garden. All in all, he was left with a massive pile of rubbish and debris in the driveway. Gramps had his Volkswagen pickup truck. The closest trash dump was roughly 30-ish miles away. Gramps loaded the back of his truck with refuse, strapped it down, drove it to the dump, unloaded it all, and headed back for another. Being retired and having little else to do, Gramps didn't mind having to go back and forth doing all this labor, but after the fourth or fifth delivery, the guys running the dump realized he had more than they thought. They tried to tell him he couldn't keep bringing it all here, since they don't take commercial trash, only residential. He insisted it was from his own home. He just had a lot of it. They refused to believe him and said that if he wanted to keep using their site, he'd have to let them follow him home to confirm. Sure thing, no skin off Gramps' nose. Now, one final bit of important information. This house is in the middle of nowhere. The roads were still dirt except for the 3 or 4 main throughways. The neighborhood's surrounded by undeveloped land, and back then there were a lot of people in the area with horses. The city would come through and grade the roads occasionally to smooth them out, but it always developed ruts, divots, and loose rocks, and generally with horse droppings everywhere. It was either late spring or early summer, so it's hot, dry, dusty, and smelly. Gramps in his sturdy little truck didn't care. He led those guys up the main road, down the dirt back roads, driving nice and slow to avoid the rocks and divots and kicking up too much dust and manure. He made it to his house, waved the boys back, and carefully backed into the side gate where the massive pile of deconstruction waited. The guys parked their vehicle on the side of the fence, got out, came around the gate, and just stared. Gramps asked them if he can keep dropping off his trash. The guys took in the pile of detritus in the driveway, the nice 2-story house, the 2-car garage, the well-manicured lawn. Yep, that's fine. They left to drive down those dusty, rocky, divoted, poop-covered back roads, then the 30-ish miles back to the dump. It took quite a few trips and several days before Gramps finally cleared all the rubbish. But on each trip, he gave those boys a cheerful wave. And our next story. A sworn statement turned into a literary endeavor. This happened a while ago when I was still in the Army. I was a mechanic, and in the motor pool, we had what's called a SATS trailer, basically a trailer that was a mobile tool shed so that we could work in the field during training exercises. The Army's way of keeping accountability of this trailer was assigning it to a single soldier, and that soldier would be responsible for everything in there. If something was to go missing, said soldier would be on the hook for it. We had an LT that was the classic stereotype of the young officer in the Army. Prestigious college education, stick up his butt, better than you, and he would use every opportunity to let you know it. It goes without saying that no one liked him. One day, the lock on the trailer had been cut. The soldier in charge of the trailer, Specialist Florida, had informed LT that he lost the key and cut it himself and is replacing the lock ASAP. LT didn't like this and assembled a platoon to make us all write sworn statements stating our involvement in the scandal. This was a massive waste of time, and we were behind as usual, but rules is rules, so we gathered in the classroom and began our statements. I felt like being a smart butt, so I asked the LT how far back he wanted me to go chronologically in my statement. He said the whole day, so I gave him my whole day. I started at 5:30 when I woke up. I detailed my morning coffee, morning cigarette, my thoughts during my cigarette, my morning shift, my thoughts on the Steve Harvey morning show that I listened to on my commute, my PT performance, my shower after PT, my nap after PT, my conversation that I had with my brother that day before 0900 work call, the headache I had all day, various other details of my actual workday, my experience of getting called into formation to write a sworn statement and how I wasn't too sure what SATS even stood for. Still don't. My writing said statement, then repeat. I only repeated the events once, but the second time around was word for word the same as the first time. It took about 45 minutes and 6 to 7 pages, and LT was furious. My statement got passed around the maintenance office to all of the sergeants, and we all got a good laugh out of it. I got a negative counseling from LT, but it was very worth it. The counseling ended up disappearing from my record because I brought it up to my CO, who was significantly cooler, and I was only following orders. And our last story, neighborhood pool access, HOA. We purchased a home in 2016 in an undeveloped neighborhood. At the time, there were less than 75 homes constructed, surrounded by hundreds of vacant lots. It's a beautiful neighborhood in an HOA, surrounded by farmland and gorgeous views. We chose the home that backs up to the neighborhood pool because of A, the views, B, convenience to the pool, and C, direct gated access from our backyard. At the time of purchase, our annual HOA dues were paid directly to the developer for use of the pool and weekly trash pickup. There was no formal HOA board. The MLS description sold the house with the following copy: backyard is fenced and backs up to pool area with gate. The private gate access was one of the main reasons we bought this house. Fast forward to today. We've had an elected HOA board for the past 2 years, both of which I've served on in an official capacity. The board members last year sent out a survey to the neighborhood asking for input on improvements to the neighborhood, which almost unanimously voted for a splash pad for the kids. The plan was to save enough reserve to install the splash pad this summer. There was some turnover on the board, and a new power-tripping president was put in leadership. He's decided to nix the splash pad and install a $25,000 8-foot fence around the pool and remove our and our next-door neighbor's private gate access to the neighborhood's pool. The only thing that he did not take into account, and that my attorney found a little later in the HOA contract documentation, was a clause about HOA assets negatively affecting the value of the property. And given that the HOA's goal is to keep values high, my lawyer prepared an official registered letter for the HOA president with a hint that we will sue him on this clause. Now I have access to my proper territory again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.